This talk is about IoT, basically. All right, that's the main thing you need to know. And I have it, I've run through this talk, and first time I think it ended up being 2 hours, and the second time it ended up being 30 minutes. So it'll fall somewhere, hopefully within an hour. But anyway, the talk's going to be a little bit different because I've done a lot of talks and I get kind of bored with slide presentations and stuff. So there will be no bio slide in this. I will not include a agenda slide because I think they're a waste of real estate. I mean, you're here, I'm going to say this stuff. I have no reason to have a slide that says this is what I'm going to talk about in literally now. And then I don't put any memes in my slides. I simply would hope that I could actually say something funny that you laugh without a picture. So, and to me, memes are kind of the new version of bullet points from, a decade ago in presentations, so why not? But anyway, the main theme for this is that there is more to IoT than just the application itself. If you're a researcher and you're looking at this stuff, you have to look at something beyond the app. You need to look at where that app resides within its space. And most IoT setups, to give you kind of a rough idea, you have on the left is the thing, which talks to a routing device, and then that talks to the internet. And typically, it's usually Bluetooth to talk to the routing device, which is often a phone, or though it could be your home router or whatever. And then on to the internet. I have Wi-Fi there, but basically TCP/IP, and it's doing a web protocol kind of a thing. On the things, typically when I do research on them, I typically start with, I just want to get an idea what normal usage actually is for the thing. So I get an idea of, hey, this is what the thing is supposed to do, and then I start coming up with some type of attack scenario based upon the device itself. I don't just instantly start saying, hey, I can do this hacking thing or that hacking thing. It's no, where does this, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute as we move forward. With the Bluetooth stuff, I took out a whole bunch of slides. There's a link at the end. Excuse me. There's a link at the end of the presentation here because I did a blog post about Bluetooth hacking and tools and stuff like that, and it's fairly detailed and technical. So there'll be a link to that at the end, so that'll kind of help cover that area a little bit. But basically what I typically do is I try to figure out, can I fingerprint whatever the thing is? Is there some way using the Bluetooth stuff that's built in to fingerprint it and look at it, see what it can do? GAT characteristics. I don't remember off the top of my head accurately what GAT stands for, but I think it stands for computer stuff. And basically it's like, think of it as like, from the computer world, it's like open ports, okay? But it's for Bluetooth, and some of these have read access, some of them have read write, and depending upon the situation and what's been opened up, there you have it. There's some actually that are standard that are almost always open. For example, the name of the device, when you're Bluetooth scanning and you see, Sarah's iPhone, that's a Bluetooth open port, so to speak, that you're looking at. I also note the pairing method, how it pairs some versions of Bluetooth, and depending on the device itself, it may allow more than one thing to pair to it. Some only allow one thing, and that's kind of interesting. The pairing methods are worth discussing on their own. The first item is a numeric comparison. You've probably seen this where the smart thing has a screen on it and it displays a number, and you make sure that number matches on the other side. There's just works, and yes, that's how it's written in the 2,500 page Bluetooth standard. It's called just works, and it actually is exactly numeric comparison, but it's all zeros. So there's just basically it's no password. Some people do, and it's become kind of popular, where they do a 4-digit passcode. So that exists as well. That's not a part of the standard. The passkey method is a little more secure. It's basically a number is generated on one side, and then you enter that number in on the other side, and then some math happens over Bluetooth, and they are now talking to each other, okay? To put it extraordinarily simply. And then there's the out-of-band method, and that is there's some other method, and this is where you have to it gets kind of difficult to actually do the out-of-band method. I'll have an example of that later on, so you can say, oh, okay, that's what he meant by out-of-band. I also look at the Wi-Fi traffic. I typically use the man-in-the-middle protocol, the man-in-the-middle proxy tool, and there's a paper that I did on this also at the end of the presentation that I have a link to, and I kind of go into that a little bit more in detail, but I use that a lot, and just basically Wireshark sniffing, looking at from the other side of the routing device, whatever it is, talking to the internet, and looking to see does it do actually, and they all talk web protocols, okay? They all seem to talk web protocols for almost exclusively. So you're looking for, well, are they using SSL? Are they using a secure thing? Are they doing certificate pinning? This is actually fairly important. Does everyone know who doesn't know what certificate pinning is? Okay, a few people. All right, certificate pinning is, I can't use that man-in-the-middle proxy thing on, let's say, Facebook, for example, because Facebook has pinned their certificate inside the app. So they say, I can only talk securely to Facebook, and I know it's Facebook because I know what the certificate is. I've got a mathematical process here to identify that certificate as being the proper one. And so certificate pinning, that prevents me from setting up my own, fake Facebook page or Facebook server at Starbucks and gathering people's passwords as they connect up, that kind of thing. And I also try to check are they doing basic web security stuff, since it's web protocols, and I'm not going to cover that. But just things like cross-site scripting, all the normal things. Are they doing proper handling sessions and things like that? All that applies there as well. Okay, app security. I typically, when I'm looking at this stuff, I'll grab the APK, the Android version of the app, and then you can easily decompile this stuff using an APK tool, which is a Linux utility. I'll use that, and I'll go through and start looking at what libraries were used. As you know, the most popular programming language currently at this time is what's the name of it? Cut and Paste is the and there's that site real popular, cutandpaste.com. No, that's not it. It's Stack Overflow. That's apparently the main library that's being used. So, but what happens is people will just, in toto will grab libraries and bring them in and use them. So sometimes these libraries may have security vulnerabilities associated with them, so you want to make sure that they're using the patched version of that. Finding an outdated library can be a challenge. Sometimes when you decompile, it'll have version information in there in actual English. Other times it won't, and you have to get kind of clever. Like if you know that there's a vulnerability in some library they're using, and the vulnerable version was 4.2, you could actually look through there and say, well, I know that this specific feature that I can readily identify in the library was introduced in version 4.6. And if it's there, then I know they're at least they're on 4.6 and not on 4.2, so they're kind of, at least using a current or at least a patched version of that library. Hard-coded credentials, those show up in the app sometimes, and I'll give an example of that later on. And then how they store the data. Are they storing the data securely? Are they using encryption, with wherever they are storing data and doing that kind of stuff? Hey, dude, I'm glad you're here. Did you bring the little thing?
I did.
Cool. Thanks.
Did you want it for your talk?
Yeah, I did. No, you didn't just witness a drug deal. This is actually...
Drug deals are out that.
Yeah, completely different scenario there. Yeah. I also look for weak authentication. Are they using some type of authentication of the app? Is it like insecure? This is like really good timing, Todd. I appreciate this. Because one of the first things I wanted to talk about, because now we kind of covered some basics here. It's actually in pseudo one piece. This is an example of, you brought the WearSafe one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is that the one you wanted?
No. Kind of blew the whole thing. No, okay, pretend that this looks just like that, okay? I'm not gonna, I shouldn't even have said what it was. That was probably a mistake. Yeah, doesn't matter. We're not really recording this, are we? Nah, surely not. Anyway, this is a personal protection device, is what this is. And it's not a toaster or anything like that, because I decided if I'm going to look at IoT stuff, maybe I should look at harder, more serious targets. A personal protection device, this particular one, this is by a company called Roar, and this is the Athena device. Now what these are mainly marketed towards women that if they're, they put these on, they talk to a phone, and if there's a problem where they feel like they're physically being threatened, they press the little recessed area there, and it can send alerts to people in their contact list to say, hey, here's my GPS coordinates, bad shit's going down. And the reason it's on a discrete little thing that can clip to like a, inside of a shirt, bra strap, on your pants, on a, just anywhere you can clip it, is that it's possible that if someone was in a threatened environment and they pull out their phone to call 911 or to call their friends, that it could cause things to escalate, phone gets slapped out of the hand, and bad things happen. So that's why it's supposed to be discreet, so they can just kind of, act like they're scratching or whatnot. Now, like I said, it's mainly aimed toward, marketed toward women. However, it's starting to be used by, let's say, people that are going to protests under repressive regimes, people that are like, doing human rights work overseas, that kind of thing. So these are being used sometimes in hostile environments. So it's kind of important that they get security right, understanding that aspect of it. And this is just one that I looked at out of multiple. If it's possible, if someone could get me some water, that'd be great. So I'll quit coughing. They're getting it. There's a gray shirt is handling it. Back to our map, okay, so you understand this particular device. So So we have on the end, we have Rohr's Athena device, talks to a phone via Bluetooth, and then Wi-Fi onto the cloud, the web, and all that. So, kind of just going through some of the things we talked about earlier. The pairing, it uses JustWorks. That's not great, but it's, you know, understandable that there. I mean, yes, it's kind of disappointing that someone used the same security level that they would to pair to a headphones, you know, that they do for something that's meant for security. However, poking around using tools like GATTool on Linux, I tried querying all the typical GATT ports, and I could not talk to the thing. I could connect up, and the first thing I would run, I would be instantly disconnected. That is, oh, thank you very much. The entire talk, people just bring me random things up here on the stage. It's just the way things are. But this was nice that it would actually, the Bluetooth implementation was put together like this. I really like that. I don't know how many people have heard of what LE privacy is. This is, what it is I think the LE comes from low energy. Back in the old days when they had Bluetooth Classic and then Bluetooth Low Energy or BTLE or BLE, or you'll see it multiple ways. Before in 4.0 of the Bluetooth spec, they just jumbled it all together. LE privacy is a way of making the thing less noticeable to scans and to add a little bit level of security to the particular device. And to give you an example of that, for the Rohr Athena, how they do their implementation of it is the Bluetooth has essentially a MAC address that's associated with it. They change that periodically. I think in their case, I think it's every 30 minutes, it'll get a new MAC address. And the idea being is that if someone is trying to track an individual, at best, all they're going to get is the MAC address. They're not going to get anything that actually gives a name or says anything, and the MAC address changes every 30 minutes. Every time the button is pressed, it also changes the MAC address. And that's kind of cool as well. So every time the device has been activated, even to do the, because there's different levels of alerts. There, you put 1, 2, or 3 clicks and it does stuff. Also, if you hold the thing down at 90 decibel thing, because
I found that out by accident.
yeah. It's funny, I'm on Slack saying, oh my God, Todd, how do I turn this thing off? It's really annoying. So I had the one taken apart and I just shorted it, so, which worked. But yeah, if the batteries, I have battery swap, that's a typo. I'm so glad I found something wrong in the slides while I'm up here presenting. It charges off a USB. If the battery's drained and then you start recharging it, new MAC address. So that's really nice that it has that level of privacy, because a lot of times there are women out there that say, I don't want to wear a Fitbit because I'm afraid that my ex is going to track me using my Fitbit. And so you have something like this, and it makes total sense to implement this kind of thing. As far as the app security goes, all the libraries were up to date. They were storing their stuff securely, and they were using certificate pinning from app on phone to the interwebs. So that was really nice. And they actually used same choices with their encrypted web stuff, which is good. The conclusion on this particular device is that they put a whole bunch of security in place in there. As a researcher, this was hard. This was a hard target, and it was hard to prove all this stuff. You had to really kind of dig to see that things were being done correctly. So it was kind of interesting. Just a quick word on these things. There's a couple of these devices that we looked at. uh, outside of this one that we found problems with, including one where there's a denial of service, where you can do stuff via Bluetooth and it's trackable, completely and totally trackable. And you can knock it offline from the phone, and there's no indication in the app on the phone that it's offline. That's a bad thing, okay? Because you could have someone there hitting the button, trying to, notify someone that something's wrong, and they think someone's on the way, and no one's on the way. So that's a bad thing. All right, on to something a little lighter. The Apple Watch, okay? How many people here have an Apple Watch? Congratulations. You have a decent, secure device, believe it or not. This one was a complete and total ass pain to try to figure out. In our little diagram here, the Apple Watch talks via Bluetooth to the iPhone, and then from the iPhone via Wi-Fi or LTE to the interwebs. Some people weren't aware of this, but starting with version 1.1, the Apple Watch was able to talk via Wi-Fi directly to whatever means that the phone did. So basically, if you connected up via your phone, via Wi-Fi to some type of network, and the network does not have a paywall or I agree to these terms, click through anything. If it doesn't have anything like that, if the phone has talked to it before, the watch knows about it, and the watch can use that same connection, okay? And this is outside of the new 3 version with the LTE thing built into the watch. This was back at the very beginning when this thing first came out in whatever it was, 2014. So that's kind of interesting. So yet another thing to look at in this case. The physical security on it, believe it or not, having a screen lock when you take the thing off because the haptic feedback sensor says, oh, I'm not attached to an arm anymore. I'm going to lock the screen. When I first looked at this stuff, that was not a common feature. Most other smartwatches that were out there on the market did not do that, which is kind of surprising because you can do things like Apple Pay and things like that. And a lot of these other watches, they have fairly sensitive info on them. It is possible that a street magician kind of pickpocket guy, the guy that's, hey, how's it going? And he like removes your watch and stuff like, It's possible to do that with this, to undo the band and then get your fingers underneath the sensor and pull it off. I mean, think about how practical that is. And it doesn't work if your hands are real cold, believe it or not. But you can pull the watch off and then you can proceed to, I don't know, to run to Starbucks and score some free drinks or something with Apple Pay. But basically, though, is that if you don't have user access to the watch, the only thing the watch is good for is telling time. Okay, that's it. Even to wipe it and reload it, it still requires access, which is a code, a 8-digit code. The Bluetooth pairing, it is the most secure method, which is out of band. You hold the phone over the watch with the camera on, and there's swirly bits on the watch, and the camera sees that. And so the out-of-band method is using visuals, and that's very cool. And then math happens in the background and stuff like that. As a backup, they use the passkey method, which is the second most secure method. So the first one is, and the default one, and the easiest one is the most secure one. They've implemented the LE privacy thing on this as well. For them, it's every 15 minutes. And if you power it off and and whatnot. It'll come up with the new MAC address. To give you a little bit of a view here, I'm sure everyone in the back row really appreciates it, and probably even in the front row appreciates when you look at a thing here. This took forever to get because I had to do a whole lot of stuff with Ubertooth just to get a decent capture. About a day's worth of just doing pairings, you know, and it's 15 minutes to wipe the damn thing, and then you got to start over, and if you miss the first packet, then you were screwed. But I did manage to get a complete pairing, just to kind of zoom in here a little bit. You can actually see that, you know, where it's starting, it's making, you know, encryption request, encryption response, start the encryption, etc. The thing that's cool about it is that's during the pairing process, it immediately starts doing encryption as soon as you pair the thing up. And like I mentioned, the privacy implementation was the MAC address changes periodically, and then on top of that, the first thing they do in that encryption thing is they do a Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and they rotate the Diffie-Hellman key every 15 minutes. They generate a new one. And so that means that if you were able to somehow actually capture the Bluetooth traffic with a Bluetooth sniffer, that data is encrypted. And if you're a nation state actor and have access to break shit, if you break the key, you've basically got 15 minutes worth of the traffic, and then you're going to have to break another key. Okay? So this is unbelievable levels of security, and it's why I have one on, and I even wore this to like Black Hat and DEF CON and the whole bit. So I because I figured, well, it'd be a nation state that would, if they're going to do anything, we would go after that, or a guy with a club that would hit me or whatever. The other threat model. The Wi-Fi that happens via the watch, I also looked at that just for grins. It's improved substantially since watchOS 2.2. Most of the traffic is encrypted with same choices. There is very little plain text. I did see, I saw a plist come over in plain text related to location services, but it was signed. So that was good. And I saw some small graphics files also tied to location services, and I tried monkeying with those, and nothing really bad happened except it wouldn't display the image because it's a freaking watch and there's not a lot of real estate there to work with anyway. And again, talking about the same choices, this is typical for most Apple stuff. And as you can see there, they're using, you know, the TLS RSA with the AES 256 cipher blockchain stuff, and that's good. Okay, 256 is heavy. 128 I think is also common because 128 uses less battery power and everything. So I know you'll see a lot of apps on things, but at least, you know, this is like, you know, it's like, wow, they're really going for it. On this, basically, it's in discoverable mode. I'm not sure if you know what discoverable mode is. Basically, it's on Bluetooth, it allows itself to actually be discovered. All Apple products, if you turn Bluetooth on, they are in discoverable mode, which is unfortunate, and it's the only thing I have against them. But there was no exposed GAT characteristics that gave up much information. The only thing I found were read-only ones, and they gave up normal stuff, and then the whole LE privacy thing kind of killed that whole idea. All right, well, we're doing pretty good on time. This next one, you're going to say, what the hell? On, okay? And I brought it, okay? Since I didn't have to fly here, I drove here. But this is a smart tool. If anyone has a NRF Connect on their phone. It's a nice Bluetooth scanner. You can go ahead and download it if you want. You can go ahead and look for this thing. It's going to be fairly easy to find and everything. And feel free to probe it and do whatever you want to with it. That's fine. I will encourage you to hack it if you, as it were. And I know because a lot of people, every time I talk about the tool, people just laugh their heads off over it. Basically, the way this is set up, though, is this talks to, does the usual stuff, Bluetooth, talks to the phone talks Wi-Fi, or whatever to the interwebs. And just to kind of make sense of this stupid thing, I remember talking in one of the work Slack channels saying, yeah, I'm going to be working on that power drill. And people thought, oh, wait, you were not making a joke. You're seriously going to look at a power tool? All right, the thing is with this, I don't know if anyone recognizes the brand Milwaukee tool. If you're working with tools for a living, or if you're doing serious construction work, this is the kind of thing that you're going to be using. Without the Bluetooth part, which is called OneKey, this is an expensive tool. This is the best tool I have, okay? This is really the best tool I have, because because I'm not a construction guy, I'm a computer guy. But this thing is great. It has you see there on the far side there, it has 4 profiles for it. You can store those profiles. You can obviously you can scan and find the device and whatnot, and that's me finding the device, and then before I pair it up to it. The thing that's interesting about this, where you actually start to see some value for its industry, is that, let's say you're a contractor, because you can keep track of this not only on your phone, but also, and keep an inventory, because they have other things that have Bluetooth on them, by the way. You can store it on the web, and the web has a nicer interface. So let's say you had 4 of these, and you're a contractor, and you're working a job, and the guys are drilling wood screws into wood, and a couple of them are over drilling, and they're cracking the wood, and it's like, oh, we got to replace that. You crack the wood because it's something that's going to show. Well, you can go in and put together a profile that tweaks the torque, and then push the profile down to the tools, and now you're not having that problem. You're saving some money, okay? Other features that this thing has is that you can assign a state to it, okay? So you could say it's available for checkout, it's checked out, and you can say Bob checked it out, and so you know that Bob walked off with this tool and he has it. You can say it's down for maintenance, and you can say it's lost or stolen. We'll get back to that one in a second. You can take pictures and attach them to the tool, so that way you know what your tool looks like, I guess. But also you can take pictures of the receipt, so you have the purchase date, that kind of thing. So now you know, like if you want to take it back or you want to schedule maintenance based upon when it went into service, etc. So there's a lot of information that you can gather and put together with these tools. Now back to the stolen thing. When you mark the tool stolen, you can actually set it up and send basically a kill message that disables the tool from working, okay? Now, it is kind of convoluted. You have to have, this thing has to be within earshot of the app running on a phone for it to get the signal. However, any phone, any phone that has the app for this, whether you're paired to the tool or not, if it spots a tool, it uploads the GPS coordinates of where it saw the tool at, okay? So you kind of have a find my tool thing with this, which is, that all of a sudden becomes kind of neat. Now, the thing is, the industry is going apeshit over this, because there's all of a sudden guys saying, hey man, because like the example I gave you of the guy adjusting the profile with the torque thing, that's from a forum. That's from a tool forum. And this guy's saying, this is great, it's saving me money. But uh, everyone's going crazy about this. They're asking for features like, can you put in something that tells me that the tool's been dropped? You know, is there a way to put sensors in and say the tool's been dropped? Because, you know, Bob's an idiot, and I think he's breaking tools by dropping them. You know, if he's checked it out and it's been dropped in his possession, then I know it's Bob I need to go after, you know, and tell him to stop drinking on the job or whatever is causing him to drop tools. They even make a thing called the Tick, and it's a little guy about this big. It's expensive as hell, and all it is the equivalent of the Bluetooth tag thing inside here, and you can attach it to any tool or lawnmowers or, you know, whatever. Just attach it to your stuff and include even, you know, competitors' tools. And so it's making huge waves in the industry. It's kind of become disruptive, if we dare use an internet buzzword. So anyway, so when I was looking at this, there's lots of things to look for. I wanted to look at the physical security of the tool itself. For you to send a Bluetooth update to the tool, there's on the top here, you have to actually switch it to Bluetooth mode for it to have a profile pushed down to it. You can't push one down to it while the thing's running, or whether it's in drill or drive mode, which is kind of cool. You cannot write values that are out of range. So if this has an RPM of, I forget what it is, I don't know, 2,500 RPM or whatever, you can't send 25,000 RPM to it and then the guy uses it and it explodes in his hand and, you know, mass chaos ensues and all that. That doesn't work, okay? I tried altering a profile that was stored on the phone and then pushing it out to the drill, and it just capped it off at the max. It didn't allow me to write values beyond what it was supposed to write, which was kind of cool. It only has two values anyway, which is RPM and torque. Okay, but it's got real fine adjustments on those. Some of the issues with the Bluetooth, it's very easy to remotely fingerprint these things. The pairing is just works, which is kind of disappointing. Just to give you an idea, this is a scan of the from a phone. I had a bunch of stuff that was command line, but this is just easier to read. And up there at the top, note that number there. That's that 0006, 007, etc. Okay, that's a unique number for this tool. Okay, that's the Bluetooth name of the device. And the MKE is a dead giveaway that it's a Milwaukee tool thing. Plus, you look at the manufacturer name string. That's one of the GAT characteristics. And it says Milwaukee tool. The model number string is interesting. It says that BLE112 in there highlighted in red. That tells me, by Googling that, and also by doing some other probes and whatnot, that this is, Blue Giga is the people that put together the Bluetooth chip on here, so I know what kind of Bluetooth implementation it is. This thing is capable of getting a firmware update to it. The current version of firmware is that BLE112. It does support encryption. They appear to be using it, which is interesting. I think it was just on by default and they don't know they're using it. But nonetheless, that's, so there's, but you can then just, the version of firmware, now you can download that version of firmware for the manufacturer, start your reverse engineering on that and really go after the tool in a different way. Like the others that we looked at, basic security was in place on their communication from app to cloud. And I know I talked about that before, but this is to give you an example. Highlighted up there in red, there's a few settings that, and this is a screenshot from man-in-the-middle proxy, just to show you, because they did certificate pinning, I had to defeat it and then get in the middle with that by decompiling the app, turning off certificate pinning in the code, and then recompiling it and signing it and loading it on the phone. But in there, they're doing things like to prevent things like cross-site scripting and just other basic things that need to be there to kind of help secure the web stuff. They've got it, and they were using that in there, which is good. They did have a problem with, is everyone familiar with what bearer tokens are? See a few heads are nodding, okay. After authentication, that big blob of text in the middle, that's a token for access to the server. It's a bearer token. And down in the JSON, down there toward the bottom, in the bottom red box, it says type of token, bearer, and then it has a user ID that's associated with that. Okay, so if you re-log in or whatever, you get a new token. However, if the expires in, the age on this thing, typically on bearer tokens, you don't want them to be, an hour is a good amount of time for a bearer token. This one expires after a year, and it's stored on the phone, so conceivably if the phone was broken into, then whammo, they're going to wreak havoc on your tool inventory or whatever. But I mean, nonetheless, that wasn't great they were doing there. And this is the kind of things that, as a researcher, you try to look for with this stuff. They did use up-to-date libraries, which is good. Found nothing there, and found, yes, they were doing certificate pinning, which I had to defeat to get to that point. They use stored credentials. It did allow weak passwords. I'll talk about that in a second. They had stored credentials in the app. They hard-coded them in. Okay, that's not good either. Okay, and just as an example of that, this is during, again, this is a request, and then there's up there at the very top in red is the hard-coded password, and that hard-coded password is in the app. They use the same, according to looking at the source code, it's the same hard-coded password for their development environment, their beta environment, and their production environment. And I don't know if you can see the password that I have. I typically, when I'm doing stuff, I use Hunter2 as my password for everything when I'm doing just goofy testing. But they demanded I have an uppercase, so it's capital H. And then since it had to be 8-character because they were really being tight on security, I had to make it Hunter22 as opposed to Hunter2. If you don't know what Hunter2 is, you need to Google that stuff. It's kind of funny. Anyway, inside joke. I saw a couple people kind of got that one. All right. Conclusions. So I actually got a couple of CVEs out of this. This for the stored credentials in the app, which is kind of bad, and the long-lived bearer token, which that's also kind of bad as well. I didn't get a CVE for this because it's really not worth it, but you can do fingerprint and tracking of the app via Bluetooth scanning. And that's bad because I don't know about you, but I don't just like put one drill in the garage and that's the only tool I have. This is with all the other tools, okay? So it is a beacon that says, hey, this guy could afford at least one tool that was expensive. And if I'm a bad guy and I'm prowling around a job site looking for, tools to steal, and there's 5 of those trailers parked on the property, it's pretty easy to figure out which trailer has the tools in it, okay? Particularly the hand tools and stuff. And so, and then of course, if you're smart, you got your Bluetooth scanner out and you're saying, okay, I don't see any iPhones or Fitbits nearby, so there's no people around. I'll go now and steal the tool and whatnot. So to me, that one's kind of bad. The interesting thing, though, is by using a combination of the stored credentials and setting up a dummy account, getting your just a dummy account on the Milwaukee website, and using that to get your own bearer token, you can go in at that point, you have enough data from what you gathered from the scan, and you can actually spoof the GPS location of the tool, which as a thief might come in handy. So you could make sure that the tool looks like it's not stolen. It's just, it's somewhere there in the garage. Maybe little Timmy walked off with it and put it under something. I'll keep looking for it. And, or, maybe Bob, clumsy Bob that drops tools, maybe he didn't put it in the cabinet right. It's got to be around here somewhere according to the stuff. It's here on property. So, I mean, you can't, or you can, send them anywhere. Just, your enemy down the street that you hate, use his GPS coordinates. So you can do some kind of weird stuff like that. Now, all three of these things, the Apple Watch, the Roar Athena, the personal protection device, and this tool, these were hard targets, okay? They were very hard targets. This is not like some, smart toaster or whatever, where it's, I mean, those are kind of fun, I guess, because, they print out, you can get toast that prints out the weather report on the toast with the stuff, or I'm serious, or a picture, which, a picture on toast, yeah, nothing bad could ever happen from a picture being printed on toast, for family breakfast, yeah. I can't think of a single thing that I would do to that. But, I mean, it's funny, but it's kind of pointless because, big deal, you compromise a toaster. Big deal, you're tricking the guy with the smart thermos who can't be asked to look at how much water is in there. He's actually being told, hey, it's actually half empty when the app is saying it's full. But anyway, that's the end of my presentation proper. There are the links as promised. Both I did a thing on the drill, and that has some fairly interesting stuff in it. And recently I did the link on the Bluetooth stuff, so you can grab that. And there's my contact info. Yeah, just to repeat for those that didn't hear it, do you run across companies that are difficult to work with? Yes, Milwaukee Tool never responded, okay? I actually involved US CERT. That's right, your tax dollars at work, trying to secure power drill. And they contacted Milwaukee Tool, and they actually got a response from them, and all they did is acknowledge that, yeah, he's right, these are correct, these are flaws, we need to fix it. And CERT gave me the guy's email address, they copied me in on all future communication, and nothing came out of it. It is, I mean, for IoT, it is not like, it's very similar to Microsoft in the 90s as a researcher. There are people that just like, what, you're able to print genitalia on toast? Oh my God, why would you want to do that? That's so terrible. And their fix is, well, we'll just, make them upgrade to a new toaster. They'll have to buy a new toaster. I mean, they literally they have no clue about most of this stuff. And also remember, they're working under weird constraints. Like you have someone that says, okay, here's this little thing where I can load my Bluetooth data on, and then they go, and it's got this much memory, and they go to order them, and then China sends like 50,000 of these things to them, and it turns out the ones they sent to them have half the memory. But the order's already gone through, and they got to use these things, and they're going to put them in whatever they're manufacturing. So they say, well, okay, we need to take out some memory, whammo, out comes all the security features. This is the kind of thing that happens with IoT. Just weird stuff where they don't even think anything about it. Oh, what's this library certificate pinning? We don't need that. Look at all that space we just saved. All right, we're good to go. Ship. And that's the world. That's the hardest part right there. Technically, I don't need to get permission from them to do the talk. To be a nice person, Duo, as a matter of course, we do that 90-day thing. that all the kids are doing, okay? But with them, we actually went, I think it was over 120 days, because we kept trying to just give them a chance and everything. Some people have responded better. I mean, like, with the personal protection devices, they're taking it seriously. One of the places that we reported, they've responded. Another one has not yet. Hopefully they will. But it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, the further down the IoT importance in society food chain you go, the less response you're going to get. They literally don't. As long as you're not doing anything that they think you're going to be stealing something from them, or it helps to say this affects end user privacy. In some cases, then they'll kind of respond to, oh, privacy, that's a bad thing, if it's compromised. Okay, question was, where does an average consumer go to find out security information on IoT devices? What's good, what's not? There's really not kind of I would hope in the future that at some point as more of this stuff continues on, that there's going to be some type of kind of privacy element to it. Like, instead of saying security, you say, is user privacy guaranteed with this product? And maybe someone like Consumer Reports can kind of get involved in that and saying this device is unsafe because it allows bad guys to break into your home with your smart home stuff because I can open all the doors, blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's something along those lines, but right now there's really nothing outside of us hoping that normals show up to security conferences, which, looking through the room, I'd say that's not the case. Nothing personal. Yes? Okay, question was on the personal security devices that we've tested. We will be publishing that. I'm not supposed to, I really don't want to say in a public place. We test, the Roar one is great, okay? That one was done spot on. A couple others we tested weren't as good. One of them was kind of bad. I'm not suggesting that you talk to me later, because that would be wrong for me to give you that information. Nonetheless, we will be publishing something, hopefully in slightly less than 90 days. The Bluetooth standard, and by the way, it's not a Bluetooth, okay, the question was, are there any standards? For the Bluetooth protocol, which doesn't exist, it's a collection of protocols, all right? I think I mentioned this, if you printed them off, you're talking 2,500 pages, front and back, just massive PDFs, that's plural, PDFs describe what's in Bluetooth. So, and there's all kinds of weird interpretations where they use words like shall and could. And so there's hardly even standards within that itself, okay? Now, due to places like cutandpaste.com, Stack Overflow, and GitHub, as people get better and they're focused on libraries and using good libraries, and these libraries by default have good features turned on, things aren't nearly as bad. And so, believe it or not, security is slowly improving for IoT. As long as they continue doing their cutting and pasting, and there's some weenie programmer out there saying, no, you did it wrong, here's a more efficient way, that's insecure, and then they post their thing to a routine, and things slowly get improved. So it is getting better, but no, there are no standards. There's several people that have tried to do this. I know in Australia they've got a working group together that's actually trying to make real progress, because they're trying to get government buy-in to say everyone has to meet this standard before you sell a Bluetooth product to the government of Australia. And that's a good idea. And they're actually gaining traction there, and I think that's actually going to happen. But No, the protocol's a mess, and or the protocols involved are kind of a mess. All right, well, that's going to be it. I will be around. Hit me up. I'll be the guy carrying the tool. Thank you very much.